What's up, everyone? Welcome to Midnight Motivation, a real and raw podcast about motivation, entrepreneurship, and achieving success. I'm your host, Tony Pec. Welcome back, all my fellow bosses, part of the Midnight Motivation Mob. Appreciate you all listening in and being a part of this amazing movement. And I want to welcome any new listeners. All you guys got to do to join this beautiful Midnight Motivation Mob is to simply subscribe, rate, and review. And today, guys, we got a guest episode. And the guest is a good friend of mine. He is a big-time real estate developer. And he is known as Mr. Wilmington. And he embodies everything Midnight Motivation, the movement, is about. He is a boss in his own right, built on self-sacrifice. But not only that, please welcome Joseph A. Boss. What's up, Joe?
Tony Pec. Thank you so much for having me on. I truly appreciate it. And I'm really excited to get on here with you. And, we I have a lot in common here. So I'm really excited to talk to you today. And just go over everything.
Yep, awesome, Joe. You got a lot of knowledge, man. I think this is gonna be a great podcast. A lot of people are gonna get a lot of value out of this. What we're gonna be talking about. So let's tell the people about you, man. What do you do? Where do you come from? Who are you? Let them learn about you, man.
Wow, are you trying to lose listeners today?
I'm expecting a big spike after we launch this one.
Because I'm averaging a loss of about 10 Facebook friends a day, so I don't know if I'm the right guy.
Why is that, Joe? You a little political or something?
Let's do this a little bit. I'm that hybrid developer now. We've got that hybrid. We're not the old 9 to 5 in a suit kind of guys. Those days are over. And Tony, I think you're the same way too. We have that in common. But I'll just start it off and just kind of give everyone a background of me. So I wasn't born here. I was born in Africa, in West Africa, and I was raised in Ghana, West Africa. I up until about 8, 9 years old, my father was in importing and exporting. So his job was to travel the world, and at the time, timber was a very, very big business in the 70s and early 80s. So, we pretty much were traveling through Germany and all the Middle East and Europe as well. So at that point, I was very diverse. I speak 5 or 6 different languages altogether right now. I try to say 5 or 6, so I'm losing. I'm starting to lose some of them, but I speak Arabic, I speak Afrikaans, and just to name a few, French. I was very diverse at a young age, but that was very difficult, being moved around. Just imagine going through 13 or 14 different schools, and every time you got accustomed and adjusted to something, you had to switch. So, one of my strong points has always been with culture and being diverse and being able to see a larger, broader world. I've been around the world at a young age, so I've been able to see a lot of things that, a lot of folks haven't, good and bad. So we ended up coming to the States for education. My dad wanted to bring us here for education. My brother and I, we came here and we moved to Miami. We were living in Miami. We lived there for about 2-3 years. Hurricane Hugo came by, wiped us out. We decided to stay in Miami. And then Hurricane Andrew came around and wiped us out again. And
still standing, though. You're still standing.
Still standing. The house went through some stuff, but we decided to come up and meet up with family in Pennsylvania where there weren't any hurricanes. And that being said, I went to school out here in PA, and I still was traveling. I still was getting around. And from that standpoint on, that's how I got to America, and then going through the schooling systems here and got myself to where I'm at today.
And Joe, how old are you, man? Let the viewers know how old you are.
I'm 32.
32. And you go out and you buy property and you build at 32 years old. Is that correct?
I was doing stuff before that, Tony. So before the real estate development world, my dream was always to build high rises. Mm-hmm. So my dream was I was always fascinated by 2 things: lighting, and I would always count how many stories the building was. So I would, if you told, Dubai, I would research buildings in Dubai, and I would research the largest buildings in the world. And I was always very fascinated with engineering, architectural designs, and also just buildings in general. And, when I got into, I fell into the restaurant development side of things by accident. I was in school at Drexel. I met a gentleman, and I became good friends with him. He was a very large Jewish investor, an amazing person. He was older in age. He was about 78 years old when I met him. And he at the time was investing into opening up 2 or 3 restaurants They were in and around the area where I'd lived. And, we developed a great relationship, great partnership, in a sense of, I came and did like a summer intern with him, did an internship. And Tony, he really taught me a lot with numbers. And that being said, I went back to school to Drexel, where, I was doing okay. I wouldn't say great. I would say okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, he reached out to me and said, hey, look, the stores aren't doing so well since you left. The guy I have in there is not as good as you, and I want you in there. And Tony invited me over to his house one day, sat me down on his dinner table, and he threw $100,000 cash my way and said, I'm going to give you $100,000 up front, and I'm going to pay you $100,000 a year, and you're going to manage 2 of my stores. We're going to open up 2 a year for the next 5 or 6 years.
That's unbelievable.
And I couldn't say no. I mean, it was an amazing deal. I dropped out of college at the time because, obviously I just thought it was a great opportunity. I was learning so much from him that I knew I was learning so much from him that I wasn't getting in school.
Yep.
And I knew that I could always go back to school, but maybe not ever develop this type of relationship with someone. Absolutely. And that was kind of my initial start to building relationships. That was at a very young age. I'm 19 years old, and, I was a millionaire before I was 21.
That's an unbelievable story, man. That is unbelievable. But you know what? A lot of people, if they were presented with an opportunity, they wouldn't think of it the same way. And I don't think they would jump on it. They probably wouldn't drop out of school because, society says you got to stay in school. Otherwise you can't do well. So for what you did, that massive leap of faith, I think that's what a true entrepreneur does. But a lot of people are afraid to do that type of jump. I think what you did was just incredible. But you know what? People listening to that story, they might think, oh, you might have gotten lucky meeting that guy. But I'm sure you can probably attest to this. But I think before you met him, everything you did before led up to that. You had hard work. You had the right state of mind, clearly, because, you dropped out of school to jump on that opportunity. But I don't think a lot of people understand that,
No, they don't. And it had nothing to do with luck. It was, it took a long time to build that relationship with him. And if you look at it, we're talking about risk. I'm very big on taking calculated risk. I'm very big on analytics. I'm very big on certain things. And, being around a man who was in stock and he was in the stock market, he owned 46 shopping centers. This is someone who was very diverse with his money as well. And he just wasn't a one type of investment type of guy, where he was just real estate. He was involved in a lot of things and politically as well, in Philadelphia and all the way up into Pittsburgh. So I got a chance to see a man that was very, very skilled at business and finding talent. He was very good. He knew that he saw something, he jumped on it. And I knew that I had an opportunity to learn from him. And worst case scenario, Tony, you go back to school and you just get more, you get more debt.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Worst case. At the end of the day, right? I mean,
some people
yes, the student loan guys don't call my phone because I don't have it. But, a lot of my friends do. A lot of people went to school do, which is great. I think education is great. I think people should go through, certain fields. You need to do it. But, it takes a certain mindset and it takes a certain person. You've got to be passionate. You've got to be dedicated. You've got to be hungry. And you've got to be able to like getting punched in the face and saying, you know what? I'm going to get hit. I'm going to go down. I'm getting back up and I'm going to come back at you tomorrow. And it's all, we're doing it all over again.
Absolutely.
And, you've got to love that challenge, whether it's you or business or, whatever it is, you've got to love that challenge. If you don't love the challenge, you don't stand a chance.
You're absolutely right. I think you have to be extremely tenacious. And I don't think people understand that when you're getting into entrepreneurship, you have to have tough skin. You have to be completely comfortable being uncomfortable 24/7. You have to do things when you don't want to do them. Everyone could do stuff when they want to do it. Everyone could go be like, okay, today I'm going to put in a lot of work. Within the next 5 days, it's like, I don't feel like it today. That's when you actually have to produce on those types of days. But people don't get that.
No, they don't see the day-to-day effort, the every single day just coming in and having to actually be better than every yesterday. And that's how I've always looked at it. Just be better than every yesterday. Learn something new today. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the smartest real estate developer in the world. I'm not. But I'm around a tremendous amount of people who have taught me, and I've taken a little bit off of each person, a little bit good and bad off of each person. And, Tony, I remember a long time ago, I was in a huge meeting with a developer. It was about 20, 30 people. I was all way in the back of this thing, not really having a chance to say anything. He finally went around the room and was asking people whatever question they want to ask me. It's a free for all. Just ask me whatever you want to ask me. Here's your chance. You're in front of a billionaire. This is Stephen M. Ross, by the way, who I'm talking about. Who's, Stephen is one of my guys I look up to. I love Stephen M. Ross. So, everyone was asking Stephen, how do you do this? Stephen, how did you make this? Stephen, how did you do that? Stephen, how did you do this? And he came to me, and I looked at him, and I said, give me your worst failure, one personally and one in business. And he stopped and looked over at his partner, looked back at me, and said, that is the greatest question that someone's ever asked me. And I was in the back of the room. I had to say it twice because they couldn't hear me. But it was incredible because to hear a man say that at his level, a billionaire say that, I said to myself, I wanted to know how he failed at some point, whether it was personal or business, because if he just teaches me that, then that can lead me to problem solving. That can lead me to where I can be ahead of the game here and know something a lot of folks have to learn, and learning is very expensive.
Yeah, you need to learn off of other people's experiences. If you can learn from other people's failed experiences, it saves you from failing those types of experiences because you still need to fail. So if you got to fail 100 times, let's just say you can get 50 out of the way because you learn about someone else. So now you can fail another different 50 ways. It gets the learning curve quicker, I think. So
every time I fail, I do a shot. I do a shot of something very strong.
Do you?
And
I like that.
Yeah, I do. There's two things I do. I'm very superstitious about two things. If I fail, that I feel something, it's a meeting, which not really. I mean, I never fail meetings anymore. I meet so many damn people, honestly. But with certain things, with political stuff or zoning, you go through all that stuff.
Oh yeah, of course.
I'll pour something strong, and I'll pour it in a glass, and I'll take a shot of it, and I'll laugh. And I'll go, okay, get back to the drawing board. Get back to the drawing board and let's get at this thing.
Exactly. Well, you know what? It's the separation, I think, right there, what you just said. You laugh. Now, a lot of people, they're going to fucking knock themselves in the head and they're going to be all down about it. And they're going to be like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. You can't think like that. And
it'll take out 7 other opportunities, right, Tony?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, it comes naturally. But a lot of people, I don't think they grasp that concept. When you get hit and when you fail, you just got to brush it off and pivot. I like to pivot. That's my word. You just got to pivot. Just like in basketball, you plant your foot, you turn around, you keep fucking going. And like you said, you take a shot and you laugh. And you laugh. This is some things that you laugh people would cry about, though. And that all has to do with the mind.
Tony, those are great points. And the one thing about, just like basketball, like you pivot. And the one thing about it, too, is also, having other shots and developing other shots. Because once people start knowing what you're going to throw at them, then you're easier to adapt to. You're easier to beat, right?
Yep,
so
absolutely.
The one thing I've learned is, when I went into Wilmington, we'll get into Wilmington, but when originally when I started meeting big stakeholders in Wilmington, who I can't really call big stakeholders because I've got New York investors now, and those guys are really big investors. But in Wilmington, our guys, our world here, we have stakeholders, and I would go in there, Tony, with one intention: to be as stupid as possible. To be as stupid as possible, because one of the greatest things you can be is underestimated.
I like that.
And when you can sit there and let them talk, you can get the answers. If you try to be that, you're not gonna be able to problem solve or get to where you want to get to if you're the one talking. So if you can get into a meeting, you're meeting with a big stakeholder, you're meeting with someone. The goal is, if you're the smaller guy, if you're the guy trying to come up that pole, you want them to talk. You want them to tell you something that you can try to fix. You want to find it in that conversation. So the best way to find it is to dumb down.
I like that.
And let them tell you what it is. And a lot of guys, like in our, younger guys, we put our chest out. We're like, hey, I'm this, and all the people around me are driving Ford Tauruses, and I'm driving Maserati, a Bentley, and I'm riding this, and I'm riding that, and I got 6 girlfriends, 6 different states. All right,
it takes pride.
Let's be real here.
You gotta swallow it.
Yes, you've got to be able to see it and to understand it. You're in front of someone that is much larger than you.
And knows a lot more than you. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot more to you, but they may not tell you something. But if you can just stay quiet and understand, find a problem in that conversation, you can be able to create an opportunity for yourself. And you know what? You want them to think you're not a threat. And once people don't, you can get to where you want to get to. Once you're a threat, now you become a target.
Yep, you collide.
You've got to look at it and say, exactly. So, you know, if you can solve a billionaire's problem, you're a millionaire overnight.
Yep, instantly. But you know what you just said right there? It's funny because the way you angle that story about you just have to be the dumbest and let them talk and take a hold of the opportunity. It's exactly what I did when I was in college. And I used to go to cigar lounges and I would network and I would just sit down. I'd ask them about what they're smoking, if they enjoy it. And that would spark conversation. And of course, these older gentlemen in the cigar lounges, and they would just spew to me all this knowledge because I was sitting there willing to listen. You know, whether I knew what they were talking about or not, and had my own opinion, you can shut the fuck up and you listen. And that's how you build a relationship, because then you can help them if you're friends with them. So it's not even, you know, I'm doing that when I'm in college at cigar lounges. You do that with these billionaires and these developing meetings. There's no difference of what we do. And I think that's the root fundamental core of who we are as entrepreneurs. You know, and I think this is a great lesson for people listening in right now. That's what you have to do. You have to go out there, and when you are out there, humble yourself and just listen to people. Listen to who you want to be like. You know, don't question it. Don't judge it. Maybe question it in your head, question it when you go home, but don't question it up front. Take in that knowledge, you build that relationship, and there you go. Like Joe said, you solve a billionaire's problem, you become a millionaire overnight. That's absolutely fucking right.
I'll give you a great example down in Wilmington. You know, I went and, you know, I live on the riverfront. It's a place I call home. You know, I love Wilmington. Anyone that follows me or is around me knows that Wilmington, Delaware, I keep very close to heart.
What's your name, Joe? Is it Mr. Willington? What's your name, Joe? Is it Mr. Willington?
That's a nickname. That's a nickname on the street right now. That's trending. Mr. Wilmington is trending, which is a lot better than Mr. A lot of things. So I'll take it. Okay?
That's a good point. We got Mr. Wilmington live on fucking Midnight Motivation right now, baby. This is great.
I'll take that over a lot of things I've been called in my lifetime. But, you know, Tony, I'll give you a great story. So, you know, I lived on the riverfront, and the reason why I moved to the riverfront Wilmington was by accident. It was because at the time we had 12 restaurants, and actually Wilmington, Delaware was the middle point. So it was easy for me to get to Philadelphia, get to, you know, Penn State, some of the restaurants we had down there, as well as also down in Maryland, College Park, and down in Virginia. So Wilmington happened to be in the middle, and I found these high rises that this group, the Cheney Pone group, had built. They did a great job, way ahead of their time. They're the best developer in Delaware. They really are. They're amazing at what they do. And I was living in the units there, and you know, I really got a chance to see the riverfront, and I was fascinated by seeing this. There was so much land opportunity available, and I looked around and I said, this could be where you could start where you want to be. But the main thing that attracted me, Tony, was the people. And I started realizing that we were all from everywhere. None of us was really from Wilmington. And you had so many different types of people. And I felt like I was really understanding them. They you know, the people from Wilmington even, they are very intelligent. They know their area. They know their city. So long story being short, Tony, I worked myself into getting meetings. You know, I'm just at this point getting out of the restaurant business. We sold all our restaurants, sitting on money, trying to get into real estate development, right? And I'm not, you know, I don't come from construction. I don't come from that. My family was never in it. So I was an outsider. You know, I was frowned upon, you know, and and I was able to work my way in to go meet the guy who developed the entire riverfront. Truly amazing what he had done down there in the sense of having vision for industrial wasteland and turning it into this beautiful area to live, work, and play. And it was my home. So I was lucky enough to some mutual people get a chance to go meet him.
You weren't lucky enough, Joe. Don't say that, man. You know you weren't lucky enough. You created that.
Yeah. And Tony, I got a chance to get him on the phone. He calls, you know, he was very nice, invited me in the next day. I went there. I had this park idea. So I wanted to start actually originally in Wilmington with this park idea, which is kind of crazy now I think about it. But we were in the early stages of it. And it wasn't, you know, we were trying to compete with Boston. They had this innovative LED park. And I wanted to bring that to Wilmington because one of the things we struggle on is diversity. It's actually having areas for families and safety. And I felt like this could be great with amenities and things geared towards families, whether you're African American or white or Hispanic or Indian or Chinese. Anyone could be there at this park. It would cost you very little to get in it, and it would be a great place for people to come, a safe, great place for people. And it had some really cool things in it, just amazing. You know, and they decided to go, you know, in the area. They were originally looking to put a beer garden there at the time. But long story short, I get a chance to go meet the gentleman that's down there. And I walk in his office, beautiful office he had there. I sat down. I showed him the park project that I'd worked so hard to get the rendering for and get it all put together. And it was still, again, remember, still halfway there on it.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells me it's the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
No, he didn't. He said it just like that.
Yeah, it's like the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And then I got escorted out of his office within 4 minutes by an Asian woman. And here I am walking out with my Louis Vuittons, and it's one thing if you get escorted out and you're wearing like Skechers, you kind of, but when you get escorted out and you're wearing Louis Vuittons, it's like, you get kicked out with swag.
Oh, it's hilarious.
So, yeah. So, I get escorted out to 4 minutes. I walk out of there. I remember calling a stakeholder who got me the meeting. And I said, hey, I showed the park project. This gentleman didn't like it. He said it was the worst thing he's ever seen. He said, you got to be kidding me. He said, I love it. I think it's a great idea. Let's see what Boston ends up doing. Well, fast forward 6 months later, 9 months later, I believe, something like that. Boston ends up getting ranked like the third best park in the country.
Are you kidding me?
Our park project was almost like exactly like theirs, maybe almost the same size. This LED innovative park in Boston ends up being like this hot spot for millennials. And, and I'm sitting back looking at a beer garden, and I'm going, you got to be kidding me right now. This could have been the starting point.
Oh, it's funny.
Yeah, this could have been a starting point. But you know what I did is I used it as motivation.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hold any grudges. I still have a lot of respect for that person, and that I could meet them tomorrow and sit there and talk to them, and there would be no hard feelings because I understood business, and he gave me a good lesson that day. And the environment I was in, he kind of gave me a wake up call that this is not going to be easy, young man. You're going to have a battle here, and let's see if you can. Let's see if you're battle tested. And fast forward 3 years later, led me into 4 development projects, and I haven't developed the park yet.
You will one day. One day, we're getting there.
I've got some Christmas trees outside my house that have lights on it. So we're getting there.
Getting there, slowly but surely. No, but like you said, it's absolutely great, man. That he turned you down, and like you said, you just persevered. Like you shrugged it off. You probably took your shot that night and left. And other people, I think they would get down to the dumps about that. But I think that's a testimony of who you are, and where have you gone to where you are right now is because of that attitude, that mental toughness, that tenacity. Pretty much.
Tony, let's put it this way. I think I won because when I came there, I only had 2 pairs of Louis Vuittons. 3 years later, I have about 9 pairs of Louis Vuittons right now.
That sounds like you have a study problem, Joe.
Yeah, the Louis Vuitton shelf. And I haven't been escorted out of another meeting since then, so I think I've been doing pretty good.
That's pretty good. I'd say you did pretty good from that point. You took a nice little pivot there.
Yeah.
That's an unbelievable story, though.
But that goes back to like just teaching, young professionals out there, guys around our age, even guys that are older that have gotten, may have, 08, 09 came around, took a heartbeat and just quit.
Mm-hmm.
That look, real estate is supposed to be fun.
Yep.
And the minute it's not fun, the minute it's not challenging, that time I think you step away.
It's dangerous.
You lost track of.
Dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. At that point, you're dangerous, and I think you have to look at it and say, vision and usage, those are huge. And I think building those relationships together. And the great thing about real estate is you can be broke one day and you can be rich the next. You know that.
Yep. Absolutely. But it's still not rich overnight. It's still everything leading up to that point, everything you had to put in before that to get there. But you're absolutely right. I think real estate is the best game you can play in. Definitely underrated.
There's no harder person to be in a room with than a landowner.
No, you're absolutely
right. A guy who's owned a piece of property for 30 years is emotionally attached to it. And you've got to sit there with your, your greased up hair and your nice suit, and you've got to pitch to this guy why he should sell your land or why he's asking too much for it, which is most of the time, and or how to get him in part of the deal if he doesn't want to sell. How to bring him into the deal, how to be creative about it. Sometimes guys at that level who own land, they don't really need money.
No, you got to be creative. Yeah, show them why they should. Yeah, why they need it, because they really don't need it.
It goes back to building that relationship with them and trust, and also, people have to see you work with integrity. And, it's very important in this whole thing too, is that we can be as aggressive and hungry as we want. But at the end of the day, we've got to be, we've got to work with integrity, got to be transparent, and you've got to let people know that, family and trust are very, very important in our business.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You have to be a man of your word. And I talked about in my first episode about me, about how, my grandfather and the Italian background I come from. And when you're around, a lot of people, Italian, like the gangsters back in the day, some of them were bad guys and a lot of people hold them in bad light. But to me, I took the positive attributes they had and they were men of their word, And I think that's a big thing society has lost, especially in our generations, about not being a man of your word, not having integrity, not having respect for others, even if you're not, even if you're younger or older, it doesn't matter. You have to have respect for everyone. But I think it's lost a lot of say in this society, which is a damn shame. I think it's just harder to do stuff. Like you can't do stuff on a handshake anymore. It's not like that.
Tony, let me give you some advice. 2-3 years ago, I'm not gonna give you advice. Your callers and everybody else out there, who have a LinkedIn page. I remember I met a gentleman in the early stages when I was trying to raise equity, and he had given me the greatest advice. He said, Joe, I'm not even on LinkedIn. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on any social media. I don't have time. And number two, I've already had my relationships built. And I didn't understand it at that point. I'm like, what is this guy talking about? I'm like, you need LinkedIn. You need to be connected with people. You need to be out here. This is, this is the new world. This is how people operate.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me 2-3 years of grind and realizing this. Now I'm not even on LinkedIn. Tony, I'm not, I'll go on there and I'll just check to see after like 30 days, and the reason why is when you build trust and build great relationships, they ignite other relationships, and you now don't need this outside world. You've got it right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
It works like a machine.
Yep.
And how I say that is, I've got a financial advisor. I've got guys that raise equity for me. I've got people that I can go to who are senior developers, who are working on projects, who have given me great advice along the way. And I've got access to that. But the great thing about it is what I've been able to do is build that trust.
Mm-hmm. And how would you recommend to people to build that trust if they don't know who you are? How do you get your foot in the door for people to trust you if they don't know you?
You can't get that on LinkedIn. And the thing about why I try to say that is, yes, you can meet someone, but it takes time. It takes more than the message. It takes people really getting to know you, especially your investors,
mm-hmm.
and understanding both sides, what you want. What do you want out of it? And understanding their mindset, and I think that's so important. Our generation is so quick to just hit a button and send 100 messages to 100 different people that they forget to maybe just focus on the 2 or 3 in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think they also don't go out and try to make those, like you said, you need to be in front of them. But most of the people in our generation, where are they going to go on the weekends or at night? They're going to go to a bar or something. You're going to meet those types of people there. I used to get made fun of for going to the cigar lounges, but that's where you meet those types of people. You have to, like you said before, you have to be creative. You have to think outside of the box, and you have to put your neck out there and go do. You can't just go sit on LinkedIn and send out all these messages. You're not going to build the same relationships you would if you were sitting down talking to someone. There's just almost no way.
Anywhere. You can meet anyone anywhere. And
but you need to go out to do it. You need to go out and do it. And you have to have that mindset. Whatever you are out, you could meet the potential next big investor.
Tony, and this is it goes right back to the same thing we're talking about here. When I was in front of so many older investors when I was younger, they told me to never, look down or talk down to people. They told me to never judge anyone, to always give everyone a fair amount of time, give everyone a fair opportunity to get to know them, and to never judge people. And I've met Tony in Wilmington and Delaware. I anywhere I go in business, one thing I've learned is that I'm not a guy that's ever going to judge anyone, look down on you. I've met people in the real estate business who, went through some very difficult times through divorce or through 08 and 09 and the recession. And they're my friends and the people I know, I talk to, and I learn a lot from, because they're teaching me, and I'm also trying to help them too.
You're open to learning.
It's like,
yep.
Yeah. And a lot of those guys are nervous or scared to get back in the game. And, the one thing about it is, versus where I'm a little more of an aggressive guy, and it complements, and you get a chance to meet people. And one thing I've always been taught in our generation, people our age sometimes judge. Oh, you don't have a degree. Oh, you're not making $100K plus a year. Oh, you don't drive this. Oh, you don't go to that country club.
Yep.
You're a failure. Oh, you didn't go to this school. Exactly. Versus back in the day, Tony, go back to your grandparents, our grandparents' time era, they didn't go to college.
No, there was no such thing as that.
No, they were street smart. They were borrowing money from the guys on the street to go get an opportunity to do something. And how did they borrow that money? Through great relationships.
Yep, you're right.
Trust.
There was no credit cards.
Oh, no, there wasn't a credit card. So, I mean, so the old fundamentals, do work. They do work. And the key thing about it, but the thing is, a small group of people our age that actually realize that. And, it's great to learn from people who are older and the advice they give you, even if they're not an investor, just pick their brain because they'll teach you some stuff.
Yeah, because they've lived for so long. But you know what? I want to jump in right there and say something. I think what you just said about respecting everyone, no matter who they are, I want to give you a testimony on that because, number one, firstly, Joe, I appreciate you, man. I think you're a great friend of mine. We're going to have a great future together. But you're 32. You're a multimillionaire. You're going to be the mayor one day, probably one day much sooner than we both realize. But you talk at the end of the day, I'm a 23-year-old kid, man, no matter how you look at it. And you take the time out to talk to me. You give me ideas on stuff. We go back and forth. And you respect my ideas, even though, by sight, I'm a 23-year-old kid at the end of the day. But you're definitely a testimony to what you're saying right now. So for everyone listening on in, he practices what he preaches. He delivers that respect no matter who he's talking to. And I appreciate you for that, Joe.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me, man. You're a great person, too. And the thing about it is I meet a lot of people every day. In Wilmington, I'll sometimes have meetings, Tony, between 10 and 30 meetings, 40 meetings a day. And I'll go for meeting a huge stakeholder that owns 50 pieces of property from, Wilmington down to the beaches. And then I'll meet a city politician who is, going through a lot of adversity and things that they're trying to do on their end of it. And then I'll meet someone that is, on the street that is literally homeless. Like, I mean, my meetings can go from, it's amazing to me because I love it. I would never want to change that because for me, it makes me know who I am. I get a chance to hear other people. I get a chance to see, understand what they're going through, and it makes me a better person. It makes me understand things better. And that's the one thing I love about Wilmington is that, we have so many problems, but there's an opportunity for a good guy. There's an opportunity for someone that can come in and really, really bring change to the city. And I think it takes a special person. And I'm not saying that I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to have a ton of people helping me, and I already have.
But you already started,
to have the people behind me. Yeah, I've got some amazing, and some of these are the old Wilmington guard who are coming out of the woodworks here to help me. But I've got some amazing people around me, and like I said, I just want to make them proud, Tony, and just I am myself. And one thing I will say out there to everyone that's listening, that just be yourself. Don't be scared to just be yourself.
I think that's unbelievable advice. And that's a multimillionaire. He's 32. He develops. He's real estate. He's going to be the mayor. Just be yourself. And you know what, Joe? You said that. And I think a lot of people, when they're let's say they're with a crowd that's dumber by, whatever metric you want to judge by, or a crowd that's smarter, they vary who they are between the people. And I think that's not the right way to be. I think you need to be true to who you are, no matter what the audience is. Like you said, if you're with a billionaire 1 minute, you're with a homeless guy the same. I'm sure you're the same Joe every time. It doesn't fluctuate, You're not more empathetic one way to one side, and you're not more aggressive on one side. You're still the same Joe.
I think what happens with developers and guys in real estate over time is we get spoiled. We get a couple of deals. We got some money in our pocket, and all of a sudden we forget where we came from. We forget where, and like I said, a lot of businesses, people who are inherited in the business. So guys like myself we're such a small percentage, but we can bring so much change because and that's why I try to say that it's transcendent. It's a hybrid type of developer. It's someone that can relate to a large audience of people versus typical developers are A to B.
Yeah.
A to B.
You're right.
And they don't have that connection with the community. And I think when you have the connection, they don't want to. And they hire folks to go do that for them, and they do a poor job representing them.
Yeah,
because you just need to represent yourself.
You have to absolutely, man. You are your brand. You know, you as a person is a brand, and people don't get that. Like I said, I wear my tracksuits and stuff. That's who I am. I stay true to my Italian culture, and I enjoy what I do. You know, and I like wearing what I can because that's part of who Tony Pec is now. You expect that from Tony Pec. And I think that's an important lesson for everyone, no matter what age you are listening into this, and you're not true to yourself and you're not who you are daily. You need to be who you are every day. And you as a person is a brand. Whether you want to think so or not, you know, how you carry yourself is a representation of yourself. It's so simple, but people fail to miss that, you know?
It's your business card, right, Tony? It's your business card.
It's your ultimate business card.
Absolutely. It's how you lead people. How you leave them. How you leave them is your business card. I mean,
absolutely.
They're going to look around, and we know we can't make everyone happy. Let's be real.
It's not possible.
But I think you just, no, it's impossible.
You have the right intention to do so.
Exactly. And your job is to just be yourself and just try to learn and get better each and every day. Even if you're not getting to that goal, that big goal you have out there, have smaller goals set in place. Get some wins. Get some base hits.
Yeah.
Get yourself going. Yes. And get yourself in that environment. And I think for me, you know, one thing I do, Tony, that I do every week, I try to do one random act of kindness. I don't post it. It's never on social media. If it is, it's probably by accident or someone tags me or something. But I don't personally post it. I try to do one random thing of kindness, and it'll be the dumbest thing, you know, the smallest things in the world that no one would think of. You know, one day I was driving through Wilmington riverfront, and I saw there was 2 or 3 children out there, and you know, they were just throwing a football around. It was this old beat up football, and it just it was just this horrible ball, and I'm watching them like they're throwing like 10 yards, and I'm just watching these kids like they didn't have, you know, some of the things other kids had. I could tell that these kids, you know, they're out there trying to have a good time. And I went over and I started talking to them. I'm like, hey, man, I'm like, let me see the football. I threw it. It was like flat football, Tony. And you know, I said, you know what? Hang on right here. I'll be right back. I said, you guys, how long are you going to be here? They're like, oh, we're going to be here. I said, here you go. Here's $20. Go to the Starbucks across the street. Go to the restaurant. Go wherever you want to go. You wait here. I'll be right back. I went down to Dick's Sporting Goods, and I bought 4 footballs. I bought a football for each kid. I came back down there, and I ended up actually getting the kids a summer program for each kid to work with his ex-NFL player, and they were able to go for, I believe, a 2 or 3 week course in the summertime to learn like their skill set, linebacker, whatever they were, whatever position he taught them. And they called me, their parents called me, like, it's the greatest thing you ever gave them. My son is like loving football. He's all in. Like, I can't get him to stop. And I said, that's great. Look, these kids who are on the street, are hearing gunshots or bad neighborhoods, you know, they're out here one day. I randomly passed and saw it, Tony. I just, you know, the ball caught me in my eye, and I saw it. I looked over there, and I was like, you know, these guys throwing this old beat up ball. Let me go do something nice today. And, you know, if it affects one person, then I did my job.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's a great story, man. And you know what, guys? I mean, we're listening on in. A lot of people like to be judgmental. They might be like, oh, Joe's doing this as a publicity stunt to tell everyone how, you know, generous he is. Listen, guys, Joe is a busy son of a bitch, man. He does a lot of fucking business every day. The point of him telling you the story is that he took the time out of his day to do that. And if someone like Joe can take the time out of his busy fucking schedule, he makes millions of dollars a year. He can take the time out to do that act of kindness. Everyone can. Maybe not to that level, but you could do something like that once a week too. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And I think that's a big thing about, you know, the success that you build for yourself, the success that I'm starting to come into. It's about helping others. And the people that I know that are very successful, like yourself, they all understand how important it is to help and to give back, because at some point in time, someone gave you and all the other successful people I know a break. And that's what you're trying to do as well.
It is. And Tony, I'll tell you one thing too, is that, you know, when you get enjoyment out of doing things for people and helping others, and it's the same enjoyment you get when you see a project get done, or you get a deal done, you get the same excitement, then you know that something special is happening. You got this great feeling. And, you know, I actually want to announce something real quick with you today, because I'm really happy about it. I just got it done last week, and I'm really, really excited about this. So the 76ers, Philadelphia 76ers, are opening up a D-League team, and they're going to be called the Blue Coats for the G League, I believe, for the NBA. And they're going to build it in Wilmington, Delaware.
Oh, that's awesome.
And isn't it so cool? And one of the things we have is we have a really poor educational system, but we have such great, talented young kids in sports. I mean, Wilmington is really really, I mean, we've got basketball, Dante DiVincenzo. We've got Wendell Smallwood in football. We've got an NFL player now coming out of Lazy Adam. We've got so much, you know, we've got Chris Heck and his son. We've got so many kids that are in college and doing so well going to professional sports. So one of the things I wanted to do was I called up the, you know, the 87ers. I said, hey, look, I don't need a discount. I don't need anything. I want to do this, but you got to give me good seats. I said, I want 2 courtside seats, and I've got a great idea. They said, what's that? I said, I want to take one student with me to sit courtside at each game. And they were like, you got to be kidding me. I was like, I want them to be where the players are at.
Let them
so I want to go there. I want to.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool? So
That's
I want
awesome.
to give them that experience.
That's awesome. That's something that you can't give them with money. If you gave them like, here's $20, that's unbelievable. That experience you're never gonna forget. It's a lifetime experience.
Yes, it's a lifetime experience. Give them that. Let them be in that room. And the one thing that, you know, the one thing that as a developer that bothers me, drives me insane is when other people go, well, the demographics aren't there. You know, it's African American 98%, it's white 4%. A skate park won't work there, Joe. It won't work in that African American community. And it drives me nuts, Tony, because if people, anyone, any human being, any race is given something they've never had and given that opportunity to do it, how do you know they can't be successful at it? How do you know they can't enjoy it?
You don't. No one. I love that you said that, man. No one, absolutely no one can guarantee that you will not be successful. So if anyone's doubting themselves, just know, no matter what anyone says to you, any self-doubt they put on you and they project onto you, there is not a single, there's no way for 100% certainty that they can guarantee that you cannot be successful, no matter what. It's just not possible.
Let's use sports as an example. I mean, we've got, you know, arguably the greatest golfer of all time is African American, right? Arguably the greatest female tennis player of all time is African American. You know, arguably the greatest rapper of all time is white. So I mean, you know, hip hop can't come. So you know that mindset shouldn't happen in real estate development either. You know, and
absolutely right. They brought barriers. That's what you have to do because they understood that.
Man.
They understood that. You're absolutely right.
So we're doing that with the 87ers, and I'm really, really happy. Something that I love because I get a chance to meet about 24 new students a year. How cool is that? And they get to come down there, they get to eat there, they get to meet the players, and they're getting this whole experience around stakeholders. And you know, this is you know, that's something I really like. That was an idea I came up myself, and that again, it goes back to like, hey, something that you can do that you can, if you can change 24 kids a year, give them that experience, man. Just imagine what that could do for the community.
You're absolutely right, man. And I think it's more important that you inspire than for you to give, like something tangible, something physical. I think inspiring is so much more valuable to people because if you're inspired by someone, you can go and take that inspiration. You can become more successful than the person that inspired you, as opposed to you just giving a kid $100 saying, here you go, because, you know, you're not doing too well. So I think what you did is just absolutely phenomenal. I think it holds a huge weight and testimony to who you are as a person. And I think it's going to do unbelievable things for those kids. And I'm sure they're never going to forget it. And I think that right there alone, like you said, you got 24 kids. You might only get one that you impact, but that one is going to make such a huge difference because they'll never forget that moment that you gave them that chance.
Absolutely. And you look at it, Tony, from my world, I'm around the big stakeholders. And, you know, I was on a phone call with a city council member last week, and they told me, Joe, you know, when you're doing these good things, you know, it could backfire on you because other stakeholders could look at it as, you know, you're kind of pressing on their image. You're kind of putting them in a tight spot where they look bad.
But you know what, Joe? If you weren't in that spotlight, you'd still be doing the same fucking thing as a person. You know, if you weren't political, or if you weren't a big time, if you just doing well and you could give people that opportunity, you would still do the same fucking thing. And I know that for a fact that you would.
The whole thing is I want them to compete with me on that level. So when it comes to doing great things for people in the city, I want everyone to compete with me. Like, go ahead. If I'm going to do something and you're going to try to outdo me, you're going to take 24 students to the 87ers game,
let's have a pissing contest. Let's do it. Yep, you're right. You're right.
Let's do it because it's going for a good cause, and that's the kind of things that and that's what we need to get going out here. And
competition in the charitable sense. Yep, you're right.
Yes, absolutely. And we need more of that here in the city. We need more of that. Absolutely.
That's a great way to look at it. Listen, everyone listening on in right now, Joe's a pretty big fucking deal, Joe. You know, you're a very humble man, But guys, Joe's worth millions of dollars. He's going to be the mayor. He has connections everywhere he goes pretty much. And he's taking the time out right now to speak on this podcast. He's not getting paid to do this. I'm not getting paid to do this. This is completely free. We're dropping tons of value here. This is just someone in my network, a friend of mine now, Joe. And this is just the type of people that we're going to be having on this podcast, guys. Just people like this that are taking time out of their day to help you because through the experiences that they had. So I hope you guys are all absorbing everything Joe's saying because he's saying some unfucking believable stuff. You can't find this in school, like Joe said. You can't find this in books. You can't find this just anywhere. This is just me and Joe, two friends having a conversation, just spewing information you just can't get elsewhere. And for Joe, I appreciate you really for doing this, man. This is just incredible what you've been saying to people on this podcast. I think you're going to help a lot of people just from this.
Like I said, I'm honored to be on here, and we all be mutual friends and, everyone speaks so highly of you and you're doing big things down there and just having this podcast and getting that message out there. You're helping so many people. And, I'm very proud and honored to be on here.
I appreciate that, Joe. Hey, listen, Joe, I don't know if you knew, but so Midnight Motivation, this podcast, to me, it's more than a podcast. I'm making this into a movement. And the premise behind this movement is I'm going to call the Midnight Motivation M.O.B. And M.O.B. is going to be an acronym, M.O.B. for made of bosses. Okay. And boss, everyone that listens on in and subscribes, you're a boss. You're a boss of your own life, no matter what it is. You're a waiter, you take ownership of that. You want to be the best fucking waiter. You're a stay-at-home mom. You want to be the best stay-at-home mom. And a boss is an acronym for built on self-sacrifice. And Joe, it's fucking hilarious because your last name is Boss. And you're literally built on self-sacrifice. You literally embody what Midnight Motivation, the movement, is about, man.
So my last name actually is very interesting. I changed my name 7-8 years ago, and not a lot of people know this, but it is my grandfather's on my mom's side. He was English and Lebanese, and he was a foster child, and his name was Joseph. His real name was Joseph B.O.S.S. When he was adopted, they changed his name to Joseph Mubarak. He ended up going and having one of the largest timber businesses throughout all of Africa, called AG Timber. It was the largest timber business. My grandfather's in photos with Nelson Mandela.
Oh, wow.
How cool is that?
That's wild.
A young Nelson Mandela.
That's crazy.
So really, really cool. Yes. So to honor him, because my mom had always told me, she named me after him, obviously Joseph, but she always talked so highly of him as a businessman and that he was very big on helping people. And he was actually one of the biggest supporters of ending slavery. He was fighting the French in Africa who were promoting slavery. And he eventually was assassinated. His story is incredible. Wow. He was assassinated because of how strong politically he was, and how much change he was bringing by hiring Africans and promoting them to large positions. So my grandfather was really a great leader, and to honor him, I went back to his original name to honor him, and it meant a lot to my mom. So there's a lot of people think that, boss, and I tell them, no, it's actually very sentimental to me, and it means a lot to me to just pay back to my grandfather, and one of the reasons why I'm here today.
That's awesome, but I think you completely embody that name just for what I think of the name B.O.S.S stands for, which is built on self-sacrifice. But you got to be careful, Joe. You said he was assassinated because he was too strong politically. I don't want you to get caught up in that either, man. we like having you around, buddy.
Listen, these political guys are 9 to 5 typically. Listen, they do business a certain way. I've understood their nature. They're I've met some great people who are in politics. I met some people that shouldn't be in politics that are. My opinions of politics is I don't look at people as Republicans or Democrats. I look at you as people. I look at you as a person and judge you by what you've done as a politician, not necessarily what you say you're going to do or how you treated others. It's how you treated me, and that's kind of how I deal with things. But I've learned a lot. I'm in Delaware now, and I remember you mentioned the mayor thing, and I've got a lot of people come to me about that, wanting me to run, and wanting me to really try to bring some change to the city. And I'll say this, that I'm not limiting myself to, if I do get in politics, Tony, I'm not going to limit myself to mayor or city council or county council or, I look at it as for me to bring real change, it's got to start on the ground. It's got to start in the community. It's got to build from there. I've got to create other leaders around me who are really going to push this change. And the great thing about it is, why be mayor when you can try to be governor one day?
Yeah, yeah,
I think
absolutely.
when you're a governor, you can change a lot of things, and when you're a mayor, you're still controlled, and you're still in a point where I don't think you can achieve all the things you want to do. So, my real interest in Delaware, if I ever was to do something, I think I would be down the road, sometime would be in a higher position. I think that I fit well there.
Well, the fact that you had that opportunity is absolutely incredible. You worked very hard to get here, and you have this New Yorker rooting for you no matter what you run for, whether it's mayor, governor, or president. Man, I got your back. So
even when I'm wearing an Eagles jersey on a Sunday,
I'm a Cowboys fan. There's three things we can't talk about this podcast: politics, religion, and sports. Okay, it's gonna get too heated on here.
Yes, I'll leave that opinion on Sundays. You won't talk about Sundays, but
oh my God, the Eagles! That was incredible this year, the Super Bowl, man. They won. That was great. I respect it. I thought that was great that they won. I'm happy they beat the Patriots. So
I love it.
Can't complain too much.
So we can't. One thing I will say, and how they do it, being an underdog, right? Being an underdog, showing you that you can succeed if you're an underdog. You can beat the top dog.
Absolutely.
You just got to find ways to do it, and you've got to want it more than anyone else. You don't have to be smarter than everyone else.
You have to work hard. No,
you can hire intelligence.
Yep.
You can hire intelligence.
Yep.
You just got to want it more than everyone else. And I think the one thing that I'll leave out there to people too, Tony, I really want to get this message out is, throughout the thousands of meetings that I've met people and very high profile people, very wealthy people, I can say this is that, you may be worth billions of dollars, but one trait that not even billionaires have, not all of them have this, or millionaires, is talent, finding talent. Most of those guys, and very small, I would say 5 to 10% of them actually can see talent. 90% of them want control. Control. I want people in my room that tell me yes, Joe, that's a great project down there at the beach. You want to paint the ceilings outside pink and blue with a green awning? We think that looks beautiful. That's going to be awesome, Joe. You are always right, Joe. You're doing great, Joe. That's how it should be done, Joe. People should do what you're doing, Joe. And you want to put people around you that tell you no. You want this because you've got to understand that. My many meetings, Tony, before I got to where I got to, I was trying to work for a developer. I was trying to find a job. And this is another story this is going to help your the people listening too. I went into 10, 12 different interviews. None of them lasted very long. I never really, because I didn't have the background that they were looking for. They were looking for the kid that came out of Brown, the kid that came out of this real estate school. They were looking for that. I didn't have that. But you know what I had? I had vision.
Yep.
I had something that none of the people behind me in line or in front of me in line necessarily had. And I had usage, and I had great relationship building skills. Yes. And at heart. And, I remember after being turned down, I finally sat in front of a friend of mine who was a judge. And I sat in front of him and I said, can you do me a favor? Can you reach out to this gentleman and set up an interview? I know you're good friends with him, and see if I can be brought on. I just, they're doing great things. I'd love to be a part of it. And he looked at me. I'll never forget this, man. He looked at me. His name was Joseph. He looked at me across the room and he just shook his head. And he passed back my resume. He passed it back to me. He goes, why the hell are you trying to work for someone? I said, because I'm trying to learn more. He said, Joe, I've known you now for 3 years. The things that come out of your mouth is scary in a sense of what you can do. Why the hell do you want to give it to someone for $100,000 a year? And he said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to introduce you to him. I want to see you go do this on your own.
Wow.
And when I left that conversation, I remember I had to walk 7 blocks to my house. I remember walking. And I remember calling a friend of mine. I remember telling him and saying, I'm going to do this on my own. And they said, well, how? And I said, I don't know.
You figure it out. Shoot first, aim after.
No. But the story comes back, all back to the same. We come back to this. It's amazing. So if you really think about it, fast forward 3 years later, okay, and I now just contracted a piece of land, and the landowners had it on their contract, and the contract was expiring. And the deal was brought to me after it expired. It was brought to me, and they told me they were not, let down by the developer, and he did not come through on the things he was saying he was going to do. And, they're now looking for another option. And, I had an opportunity to go, make a pitch to these guys. And it was a great opportunity. So I went in there, I met these gentlemen and very seasoned real estate guys and investors on their own part. And within my meeting was set for one person. I was supposed to meet one gentleman, a Jewish gentleman there. It was a great guy named Jeff. And I'm in there speaking to Jeff. He says, hang on a minute. After about 10 minutes of talking to me, goes and starts knocking on all the doors. We're in this big fancy corporate office building. I mean, I can't afford it. It's that nice. Okay. And he's knocking on doors, this center, that center. Guys. These guys are either meetings or in front of their computer. Come over here. Come to this room. He brings back these 4 other guys. They come in, they all introduce themselves to me. So these are my partners. He said, I want you to say exactly what you just said to me to them. Go. And I did that. And they turned around and they said, we'll have about 5 or 6 deals to you in the next 7 days. Not only did I accomplish contracting that land, but I got 5 or 6 other opportunities lined up for me.
That's crazy.
And I found out, I didn't know this, but I found out in a meeting, the developer who lost the contract was a guy who didn't show up for my interview.
Really?
Yes. He's a very, very wealthy man who's done great things, really, very wealthy. And he never showed up for that interview. I had an interview set up. I went down there, and he never showed up. He never called me back, never emailed me back, nothing. And it's amazing. I'm looking now, and I'm going, I just beat him on the property. And it goes to show you that not everyone can see talent. So you have to understand that when you go in these meetings sometimes, and you can have the most impressive resume or meeting or, a plan, and they may look at it and they may be like, this guy's a threat to me. This guy knows too much. This guy, I don't see it in him. I'm looking for someone who can pay $50,000, $60,000 a year. They may not see that talent in you.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to understand that you either have to be that yourself or you have to be around someone that does see that in you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what separates, in my opinion, the good from the great in real estate development. The great developers see that and they take it, they hire it. They're like, I want it today. You're mine.
Hire slow, fire quick.
Coming
That's the motto.
Yeah. And so they could be like, look, Joe, I don't know how long you're going to work for me. It could be 3 months, it could be 3 days, it could be 9 years, but you're going to work for me today, and I need to hear your ideas. Mm-hmm. I need this guy in my room. I need him in my war room. And that's what I've learned is that, from with my come up, is that I love intelligence. That doesn't scare me one bit. So if I met myself and he sat across the room from me, I'm going to try to buy this guy for as much as I can afford him for, understanding that he's going to walk away one day, but I'm going to build that relationship with him because I see he's the hot hand. He could be bringing some great things to the table and really expanding my company. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times people in development want people they can control, and they want people to just tell them yes all the time. And at the end of the day, it limits you to your growth, mm-hmm. and it could be the defining factor that takes you down because you are not seeing what other people are seeing, and you're confined, something you don't want to be in real estate development.
That's great, man. I love it. Listen, I love how you said the whole thing about the value because I think that oftentimes most people don't realize the value that they have. They're usually worth more than they think. Just like, that guy told you, you don't need to be working here. What are you, crazy? You're selling yourself short. And I think that's an important takeaway too, just to understand you're always worth more than you think you are. And that's something that people I think need to hold true to themselves, and they really do. So Joe, listen, I want to cut this off a little bit because people have short attention spans, so we don't want to go too long, but I have one more question for you before we end this. I'm going to ask you the same thing you asked the billionaire. I want to know, what is big failure in your personal life and a big failure in your business life? Go.
Okay, so in my business life, biggest failure, I would say, for me, in business would be, honestly, it would be learning, man. Just learning, just understanding that you not necessarily have to make everyone happy, right? and that you have to understand that you're going to make people mad and people are going to be upset at you. It took me a long time to realize that it's okay. It's okay. You know, I wanted everyone to like me, Tony. I was always the guy in the room that made everyone laugh. And, you know, I was always that guy. But I had to realize that, you know, as a failure, it took me, I had to learn on my own that you're not going to make everyone happy and that people are going to come at you. You could be the greatest person in the world. You can be doing great things for people. And they're just going to come at you because, you know, you have a punchable face or because you know, there's something about you they just don't like. And I've realized that. So my end is that I've learned how to be better at that and understanding to not taking it personal and learning that it's okay. It's okay to just shake their hand, walk away, and just say that's what it is. And you know, on my personal life, you know, in a sense of failure, I would say, you know, honestly, Tony, I really can't think of one, man. I can't think of one. You know why I can't think of one?
Because you don't see them as failures.
Because I can't. You know, I'll tell you what my biggest failure was. Waiting too long to have a kid.
That's good. I like that.
Waiting too long to have a kid. You know, I just had my son, and I didn't realize how much strength I have from my son. He's the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I've never had a bad day since he's been born. I've gone through a lot of challenges in my life, and my son has made me so strong. And Tony, I really don't have any bad days anymore.
That's
you know, I say that to people. They look at me, they tell me, they think I'm crazy when I say that. I don't. I can have the worst meeting in the world, come home, my son wants to play with me, and he's running around, he's making me laugh. And I just, if anything, you know, I waited 32 years old to have a child, but, you know, he's the greatest thing ever happened to me, Tony. And I would say to everyone out there, man, family is amazing. It's the greatest thing in the world. And when you have a son or a daughter, take every second, every minute that you're around them and enjoy every second of it, understanding that they bring so much love and joy to your life, you know, and it's parenting is just, it's one of the most underrated things. I mean, it's a great gift from God. And that's one thing I would tell people is that I wish I could have 100 kids at this point after Beckham, but he's so amazing that he's giving you get that strength that you can't find in anything else.
Yep, that's great, man. I love it. And you know what? When I see pictures that you post of you and your son, you really see how much you love him just in the pictures, man. You're like radiant in the pictures, and I love it. I think it's great, man. I'm sure you're a phenomenal dad. And you know what? A lot of people in the community look up to you as a father too. So I think you have plenty of children, just Wilmington itself. So I think that's great. Well, listen, guys, it's been a great episode. We've given you a lot of practical knowledge, a lot of great things we talked about on this podcast. Like I said, this is not scripted, guys. This is real and raw. We just have a conversation, me and my friend Joe. So, Joe, I want to welcome you to the Midnight Motivation Mob. You're a boss in every right between your last name and actually being built on self-sacrifice. Guys, if you got any value or knowledge out of this podcast, I know almost everyone got way more than just one little tidbit. Please subscribe, rate, and review it. This is completely free. There's no money to be made. I'm getting these great people on the podcast like Joe Boss, and they're not doing it for fun, man. They're doing it to help impact you guys. So let's get this message out here, what Joe says and what everyone else says on this podcast I have, by just simply subscribing, rating, and reviewing, man. It's free to do. It's easy to do. It takes 2 minutes. But I want to thank you all for listening on in. Joe, I want to thank you for coming on. I appreciate you, man, and I will talk to you this week, man.
Tony, you're the man. I love you, man. Keep doing the great work. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Love you too, man. I'll talk to you soon.